My name is Rachel Phillips and my pronouns are she and her, and I've worked with Peers Victoria for the last 25 years in different roles.
And my name is Natasha, she and her. I've been working in the sex worker rights movement in Canada and internationally for about 20 years, and it's been 11 years now I'm with Peers Victoria.
Before we start, I'd like to acknowledge that we're on Lekwungen territories and we're so grateful to work with many community members and co-workers who are from local island nations and who are paving the way for a decolonial approach to harm reduction and violence prevention. As an organization, we prioritize lived experience, and this means also prioritizing Indigenous-led services within our organization for current and former Indigenous sex workers.
What is a bad date and aggressor reporting?
Bad date and aggressor reports are informal reports compiled by sex workers to share information with other sex workers about people that they may want to avoid. These reports are compiled across Canada by organizations that distribute them within sex worker communities to help keep each other safe. A bad date can be anything that makes you feel uneasy or threatened about a potential client. And they say bad date and aggressor because sometimes you never make it to the point of being on a date with that person. It happens early on. And that could include like the way that they communicate with you, how they negotiate the date. And then if you're actually with somebody, it could include not respecting consent, taking off a condom, being verbally or physically threatening or physically assaultive. There are lots of examples: confinement, even wasting your time. There is no issue that's too small to report in a bad date, because basically you want to be able to warn sex workers about any kind of behavior that they may want to avoid in interacting with somebody.
What is the history of bad date reporting?
For as much as we know, it looks like bad date and aggressive reporting started in the 80s. In Vancouver, there was the Alliance for the Safety of Prostitutes, which would have been a street outreach organization, and they have some bad date reports that go back to the 80s. We also know that with the expansion of street outreach in the 80s and early 90s in response to the HIV epidemic, bloodborne infections, that there was increased street outreach to distribute safer sex supplies and safer drug use supplies, and alongside this, more connection with street-based sex workers, and that enabled bad date and aggressor reports to start to be compiled and formalized. So they've been around since the 80s, it would seem, and they're linked to street outreach efforts and the expansion of street outreach.
Why is bad date reporting important?
Bad date and aggressor reporting is important because it's a community-based way for sex workers to keep each other safe when criminalization and stigmatization pose so many barriers to accessing societal resources, and when sex workers can't be open about sex work with others. So they have to share this information within their communities to keep each other safe.
How can you report a bad date?
There are a number of ways to report a bad date. Peers has an online form that's available through our website, and you can report that way using a phone or a computer. You can also phone us to make a report over the phone. You can approach any one of our staff in our programs to make an in-person report. The reports are anonymous, and people often want to know that. And you can also have a friend make a report on your behalf, or if you're a service provider in the area and you've learned about something through the work that you're doing, you can report that as well if you have the consent of the person who shared the information with you.
What kind of information is included?
In a bad date and aggressor report, you would provide your name, your contact information. It doesn't have to be your real name. The reports are confidential and anonymous. Mostly we're looking for 4 types of information that we use to compile the bad date and aggressor report, and that's the date of the incident, the type of incident, a brief description of what happened, and some of the description of the offender. And that's so that we can compile a summarized version of the incident to go in the bad date and aggressor report. And we want that information to be enough so that sex workers can avoid that person, but not so much that either the reporter or the potential offender is necessarily identifiable in the report. The reports are available online through a password-protected website, and we also do a print copy that goes out into the community.
What does the violence prevention team do?
The violence prevention team will follow up with you if you've made a report and you've asked for follow-up support, or even if you haven't made a report and you just want to come in and see what their service is about. They will follow up with you, and they can offer a number of supports. So they can provide supports in terms of connecting with our counseling services. We have sex worker friendly counseling at Peers. We also work with a Victoria Police Liaison Officer, and they can connect you with making a report to the police or exploring options through that if you're interested. They can help you connect with victim services. We also work with a number of healthcare professionals that if you need some health care, they can help you connect with that as well. And they can connect you with other programs at Peers Victoria. And like I said earlier, you don't have to have recently experienced the bad date. You can come in afterwards if you want to, or if something has happened historically, and access these services as well. So beyond those direct supports to people who have experienced violence, they also do a lot of education work. So they work with sex work communities to offer education on how to avoid and prevent violence in the context of your work. And they also work with the general public to teach people about what does violence prevention mean in the context of the sex industry, and how people can be a good ally to preventing violence.
What should we do if someone shares a report with you?
If someone shares a report with you, they may see you as someone who can help them in that moment. They may be feeling vulnerable or stressed. People react to stress and trauma in different ways. You may not feel well equipped to help them in that moment because maybe you don't have a lot of experience with this. But everybody can listen with compassion and full attention. You want to validate the person's experiences and their needs. You want to explore, do they have any immediate needs that would help them feel more comfortable, or someone that they have to reach out to? Do they need a phone, a blanket, food? If the violence has occurred recently, they may need access to medical attention, so you can help connect them to that. They may not know what they need in the moment, so it's okay for people to not know, to just share as much as they want to share and to come back for other supports at a later time. It's okay for you to know the limits of what help you can provide and to connect them to other services. And you just want to make sure that you're affirming their feelings and their experience, and you're not imposing ideas for help on them in that moment. And after you've heard an experience like that, you may want to seek help for yourself afterwards as well, because it can be stressful to hear those kinds of things, and you can seek help from a coworker or a supervisor or someone who knows more about sexualized violence.